Radio here today with Valerie Wood, and thank you very much for inviting us to your house.
You're very welcome.
Obviously, over the years, you've been interviewed a lot. Do you get bored with it?
No, never. And it's very flattering, actually, to be asked if I would give an interview. So, no, never.
Good. What I would try to do is think of some different questions for you today.
All right.
So that, but one thing I remember reading, December 2009, you outsold Stephanie Meyer's Twilight
did,
series in
Wasn't that amazing?
Augusta.
That was amazing.
I love the Twilight series.
Yes.
And to see you, one of my favourite authors, there outselling.
I know.
I only came up here 6.5 years ago from down south.
Yes.
And a friend introduced me by lending me, what did she lend me? Annie.
Oh, yes. The second.
That was your second
Yes.
one. And at the time, The Kitchen Maid was out.
Yes.
I bought that, and then I met you in 2005, and you
It
signed
was
it.
in hardback, which really was, as I say, it was very, very flattering indeed. And what? So yes, it was wonderful. Wonderful.
Amazing. Your fans are very, very loyal.
Yes, they are, particularly the East Riding
Yes.
fans. I mean, I have a lot of readership now throughout the country, but the readership here in Holland East Riding has been wonderful. Every year they come to buy another book, which is great, and it gives me great encouragement, of course.
Of course.
To
Do
keep on
you
writing.
have a favourite that you've written?
Of my own.
Yes.
I suppose it's always the one I'm writing. Actually, Annie was a particular favourite. The first one, of course, was always going to be very special.
Of course.
Because that's the one which won the Catherine Cookson Prize. But I had actually started Annie, and must have been about a third of the way through it when I heard that the first book had won the Cookson Prize. So, of course, Annie really took off then, and so that was very special. I thought, I am a real author, a proper writer, and it needs that sense, really, of achievement to make you feel that. All writers feel the same about that. So Annie was very special, and somehow, although she'd been a really downtrodden character, in the first book, she appeared briefly in the first book.
She did, I remember.
In the second book, she really came into her own, and I found humour in her, which I didn't know she had, and so many other sentiments. So that, Annie was really quite special.
It was a really good book, and I must say it was one of the things I wanted to know. How do you know when to finish a book?
Well, usually, as you're writing, everything starts to fall into place, and it comes to a natural end. I generally know by the last chapter, or the chapter preceding, that I'm almost there, and then somehow it all falls into place. What you have to remember really is that I am a storyteller,
Of course.
and that is how I think of myself. And so telling a story, you begin once upon a time, say, if you're reading to children, and it then comes to a natural end.
Not always they lived happily ever after.
Not always, no. And of course, life doesn't happen like that.
That's true.
But I feel you have to make a satisfactory ending, because otherwise the readers are going to be very disappointed. And also you can't leave trails which have not been satisfactorily tied up.
Of course.
And leave your readers thinking, well, what actually happened?
I also remember when you were writing The Hungry Tide, you went out to Mackleton and saw the
along the cliffs, that's right.
Right.
Well, of course, it was that particular time that gave me the inspiration to write the first book, because Mackleton was falling into the sea. This would be in the mid-80s, I think, 80, or maybe 88, something like that. And it was that question, really. What did the old villagers think? Did they try to save their village from the sea, as the Mackleton villagers was trying to do. And it was that, really, that did inspire me.
Oh. Have you been back since and seen? I went last week to Mapletown.
Oh, did you? No, I haven't been back for some time, actually. Not for a year or more.
I wondered if it had changed or eroded any more since that
No, I don't
time.
think so, not since they built the wall. And, of course, there is a difference now in the wall, because the sand has come up, but of course that's what it was there for, to catch it all, catch the sea.
Right, I've just been looking through a collection of the books that you read, including one of my personal favourites, Bill Bryson.
Yes.
And when do you actually get time to read?
In bed.
That's when
the only time. Well, occasionally I might take an afternoon off if I've worked very hard in the morning and I feel as if I need a break. Then I might take an hour or two off and sit and read, if I've got a good book. But usually I read in bed, yes.
And that's what I do. It seems to take so long because I fall asleep after a chapter.
Yes, that's right. I sometimes do as well. But and then I do indulge on a Sunday morning, actually. I make a cup of tea, go back to bed and read a book. But usually, you see, during the day I'm reading for research.
Of course, yeah, and you need to have some time just for the pleasure.
It's good to read a book purely for pleasure, and also for a writer to get their own book out of their heads. Because otherwise, I know that I would be thinking about my characters before I was falling asleep.
Oh,
so I would rather read another book. I can empty my mind and then next day start again.
So it doesn't sort of carry on non-stop and suddenly...
Sometimes it does. Yes, sometimes it can. I mean, I can even think about my book as today I'm going out. I have to go to Hull. I will probably be thinking about my characters whilst I'm driving in, which is not a dangerous thing to do, actually.
Do you sort of make yourself notes when you're out and about, just to remind yourself?
Not often. No, not often. I do tend to feel that if an idea comes into my head, if it's strong enough and worthy enough to go in the book, it will stay there. And if it isn't, then it doesn't matter.
You're going to let it go.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's fair. Mainly set around Victorian era, which is lovely because my favourite one, I've got to say, is the Songbird.
Oh, yes.
I love the description of her costumes and the old-time musical. It was fantastic. And would you have liked to have lived in the Victorian era?
Oh, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think the working classes had it very, very hard indeed. Perhaps if you were a tradesman or tradespeople, it wouldn't have been quite so bad. But I think the poorer working classes had a really hard time. And of course, they weren't able to fight for themselves the way that people can today.
That's true.
Had I been born into the aristocracy, it might have been different. But I don't think, given my family history, that I would have been. But no, I wouldn't have wanted to live then. It's fascinating to look back. And of course, both my grandparents, both sides of my grandparents, they were late Victorians. And one side, my granny was widowed when she was about 40 and brought up 5 children. And I think that must have been very, very hard. My paternal grandparents were slightly better off. Certainly my grandmother was a very determined woman, and she did actually set up in various businesses for herself. So it was a question of how people were and what chances they had. But personally, no, I do like my 21st century comforts.
The running water, the inside toilets,
that's right.
Not keeping cold in the bath.
That's right. Central heating, yes, electric light there